let us all do we can to build a better future. So, internet censorship is a serious issue. And look, I've been covering a lot of the elections from the aftermath of 2016, the 2018 midterm election cycle, the 2020 presidential election cycle, the 2022 election cycle, as well as respectively the 2019 and 2023 City of Chicago election cycles for office of mayor. And the thing is, what I've noticed as time continues to progress on forward, and that is journalism, at least corporate journalism, has revealed itself for what they truly are. Corporate media has a bias. Corporate media has a perspective. Corporate media wants to control the narrative. And already we're seeing right off the bat, corporate media circling its wagons around the Biden-Harris administration, even though there's polling data showing that Biden and Kamala are losing approval from voters. Voters are upset and angry in regards to how this administration has been handling policies. And again, under the Biden-Harris administration, all the promises that Biden said that he would keep or follow through on or appease Bernie Sanders and his progressive movement, corporate media has never once called out the Biden-Harris administration for the fact that they have failed to follow through. Because corporate media is controlled by the same people who control the two-party system. Now, again, in this election cycle, we're seeing people like Dr. Cornel West being smeared and vilified, but we're also, again, seeing the Democratic primary challengers being smeared and vilified as well. Case in point, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And I really want to get his thoughts and comments, especially in regards to how journalism, legacy media, the quote-unquote journalists, the talent at CNN, BSDNC, have failed to really inform you, the American people, about what is really happening in our republic. All the while, we have unchecked corruption and political abuses of power. So let's pull up this video up. I found it to be very enlightening.
Certain press organs that have been linked, to the agency, that the people who run those organs, things like the Daily Beast, now Rolling Stone, editor of Rolling Stone, Noah Schlackman, has deep relationships with the intelligence community, Salon, Daily Kos.
But I wonder why they would do it. So from my perspective, it just seems like the job of a journalist is to have an integrity where your opinion cannot be influenced or bought.
I agree with you, but I actually think that the entire field of journalism has really shamed itself in recent years, because it's become, the principal newspapers in this country and the television station, the legacy media, have abandoned their tradition of which was, when I was a kid, listen, my house was filled with the greatest journalists alive at that time. People like Ben Bradley, like Anthony Lewis, Mary McGrory.
Which I had to say, okay, hey, there was a point. Yes, there was at least a point to where journalism was respected in this country. Now, again, nothing is perfect because there's no such thing as perfection. It is a false idea to think that things are perfect in an imperfect world. But journalism compared to maybe RFK Jr.'s time and now are two different things altogether. And first of all, we could thank Bill Clinton and the Telecoms Act for making corporate media into the monster that it is now.
Pete Hamill, Jack Newfield, Jimmy Breslin, and many, many others. And after my father died, they started the RFK Journalism Awards to recognize integrity and courage, journalistic integrity and courage. And for that generation of journalism, they believed that the function of a journalist was to maintain this posture of fear, skepticism toward any aggregation of power, including government authority. That people in authority lie, and that they always have to be questioned, and that their job was to speak truth to power and to be guardians of the First Amendment right to free expression. But if you look what happened during the pandemic, it was the inverse of that kind of journalism.
Well, actually, it's been going on for quite some time, RFK. So listen, you're ever on our show, which, again, we did invite him to be a guest on our show. I think it's important for people like him to understand that this media bias has been going on for decades now, especially thanks to the actions of the Clinton administration. Again, the censorship on social media and also the political bias that you see in corporate media is all too real. We see stories being ignored by the establishment. We see stories that are false being promoted by the establishment. We see stories that are now deemed false to be declared as true, and stories that are true to be deemed false. The talent at these media outlets, not the journalists, dictate their feelings to the audience. They read a script. And even when presented with an opportunity to interview presidential candidates, the talent dictate who they want to talk to and not talk to, and deem you, the viewing audience, too stupid to make that decision for yourself. We've heard from people like Jake Tapper, who refused to give RFK Jr. a town hall. We see corporate media across the board dismiss third parties. Look at how they're smearing Dr. Cornel West and calling him a spoiler candidate. Look at how they dismiss anyone running the Green Party, Libertarian Party, or Independent. They're quick to do that all the time. Again, it never existed in the first place.
Where the major press organs in this country were, instead of speaking truth to power, they were doing the opposite. They were broadcasting propaganda. They became propaganda organs for the government agencies. They were actually censoring the speech of anybody who dissents.
Now, I do want to pull up this here as well, because again, there is a change though that's taking place. And I know Glenn Greenwald also commented as well, especially what it means in the long run for how the federal court has just barred the government from coercing and getting involved with big tech and how they present their feeds to their users. So let's pull up this video here and talk about it here for one quick second, because it's important to talk about maybe a narrative changing.
Finally,
let's talk about it.
We have a federal judge, a federal district court in the Western District of Louisiana, who has put its foot down about the fact that the Constitution does not allow the government to go around pressuring and threatening and coercing private actors, such as big tech companies, to censor for them in a way that the Constitution would prohibit government officials from directly censoring themselves. There's a long line of case law, the seminal Supreme Court case, which we will show you, that has repeatedly held that the First Amendment does not just bar the U.S. government from censoring directly, meaning enacting laws, making it criminal to express certain views or punishing people who are dissidents, but also prohibits them from doing a workaround to the First Amendment free speech guarantee by using its regulatory power or its legal authority or its economic reward system to threaten and coerce private actors to censor for them. So this case was initiated by these two attorneys general of these two states. It sued on behalf of epidemiologists whose views were censored off the internet. I'm talking about major epidemiologists with the highest academic pedigree, journalists and activists whose views on COVID, whose views on Ukraine, whose views on a wide range of issues were also censored.
Again, keyword censored. We've been dealing with that for a very long time here at Hard Lens Media. And unfortunately, it has gotten so bad in regards towards how independent media can present the news and conversations to people. It shouldn't be this way, but it is.
Not as a result of the autonomous decisions of big tech companies, but as a result of people at the highest levels of government picking up the telephone or sending emails to big tech and saying, these are the things we do not want you to permit to be heard. And if you do, that is going to affect our relationship. Finally, a federal court has said, A, this is happening. B, there is ample case law that makes this unconstitutional. And C, I am hereby ordering this to stop immediately. He had enjoined major senior Biden officials from continuing this campaign of indirect but very serious and unconstitutional censorship of political speech on the part of American citizens over the internet.
Now, again, look, censorship is very real, unfortunately, and thankfully we are seeing a turn. So I understand where RFK Jr. is coming from to a point to where, again, the media is no longer doing its job. Newsflash, it's always been that way, especially since Hard Lens Media got started. But what is really more shocking is that corporate media has been like this even before we got involved, and even before the early 2000s, we could thank Bill Clinton and his administration for opening the door with the Telecoms Act to making corporate media the monster and tyrant that we know today, and how it muscled its way onto social media so that the algorithm would favor them. And because of this, when the two-party system and corporate media and the establishment have a narrative, they're going to promote it. Case in point, this ridiculous war that's taking place in Russia. Or be more correct, apologies for getting that wrong, the ridiculous war that's taking place in Ukraine. So let's pull up this video here. That'll be just a final video. But it's important to see just how, again, the conspiracy that is Russiagate that was promoted by corporate media, and how we're constantly at a forever war with that country. So let's pull it up for our viewers.
Business to change the Russian government. And anybody who thinks it's a good idea to do regime change in Russia, which has more nuclear weapons than we do, is, I think, irresponsible. And, Vladimir Putin himself has said, we will not live in a world without Russia. And it was clear when he said that he was talking about himself. And he has his hand on a button that could bring, Armageddon to the entire planet. So why are we messing with this? It's not our job to change that regime. And we should be making friends with the Russians. We shouldn't be treating them as an enemy. Now we've pushed them into the camp with China. That's not a good thing for our country. And by the way, what we're doing now does not appear to be weakening Putin at all. It's not our business.
Again, you can thank corporate media for dragging us into this nightmare. I am ever hopeful, though, that eventually more people will stop tuning in to corporate media, dismissing it for the, ridiculous institutions that they are. We're all seeing firsthand what's happening to CNN as they're hemorrhaging viewers. To a lesser extent, that's kind of happening to Fox, but they're not on a deep decline like CNN is. But this election cycle, we need to see the rise of independent voices and independent media following these campaigns, giving detailed analysis and follow through. Because if we don't actually bring up a real alternative to inform and empower people to know about the corruption that's taking place, not only will things not change, it will get worse. And it's up to all of us now, more than ever, to fight for that better future.